A magnificent island civilization, more advanced than anything else in the ancient world. Wealthy, powerful, and then, in a single day and night, swallowed entirely by the sea. Atlantis has fascinated people for over 2,400 years, ever since it was first written down by a Greek philosopher. Most historians agree it was likely never a real place. But here's what most people don't know. There's a real ancient disaster, backed by genuine archaeological and geological evidence that some serious researchers believe may have directly inspired the myth. Today, where the Atlantis story actually comes from, and the real historical event that might be hiding behind it. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. Atlantis doesn't come from ancient myth passed down for generations. It comes from one specific source. The Greek philosopher Plato, writing around 360 BC, in two of his works, Timaeus and Critias. In Plato's account, Atlantis was a powerful island civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, generally understood as the Strait of Gibraltar, with advanced technology, a sophisticated political system, and a military that eventually grew arrogant and morally corrupt. As punishment, Plato writes, the gods caused catastrophic earthquakes and floods, and Atlantis sank into the ocean in a single day and night, disappearing completely. Crucially, Plato presents this story as something told to him through a chain of much older sources, tracing back to Egyptian priests centuries earlier. Whether Plato intended this as genuine history or as a deliberate philosophical allegory about hubris and the fall of great civilizations has been debated since antiquity, and this uncertainty is exactly why the story split into two very different traditions almost immediately. The mainstream scholarly position, held by most classical historians, is that Atlantis was very likely never a literal place. Plato was known for using invented stories and allegories throughout his other works, specifically to illustrate philosophical points. And Atlantis fits this pattern closely, alongside other famous invented tales he uses elsewhere, like the allegory of the cave, the Ring of Gyges, and the myth of Ur, all designed to dramatize ideas rather than report facts. In fact, in the Critias, Atlantis is set up expressly as a mirror image of an idealized Athens, the righteous city that defeats it. A structure that looks far more like a constructed moral contrast than a record drawn from history. A powerful, prideful civilization destroyed by divine punishment mirrors themes Plato explored elsewhere regarding the dangers of unchecked ambition and moral decline. No other ancient Greek writer before Plato ever mentions Atlantis. No Egyptian records, despite Plato's claim that the story originated with Egyptian priests, have ever been found referencing it either. For a civilization Plato describes as immensely powerful and advanced, the total absence of any independent corroborating source from any culture in over 2,000 years of searching is a significant point against a literal historical reading. But here's where this gets genuinely interesting, because roughly 1,000 years before Plato wrote about Atlantis, a real, documented, catastrophic disaster struck the ancient Aegean world, and some serious researchers believe echoes of it may have eventually reached Plato through much older oral tradition. Around 1600 BC, the volcanic island of Thera, known today as Santorini, experienced one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions in recorded human history. Geologists rank it among the largest eruptions of the past several thousand years, with an explosive force comparable to a 6 or 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. It was so massive that it's estimated to have ejected several times more volcanic material than the famous 1883 eruption of Krakatoa, on the order of tens of cubic kilometers of rock and ash hurled into the sky. As the magma chamber beneath the volcano emptied, the mountain above lost its support and began to collapse. The eruption triggered enormous tsunamis across the Aegean Sea, powerful enough to devastate coastal settlements for hundreds of kilometers, and the center of the island itself collapsed into the ocean, forming a massive underwater caldera, the dramatic crescent-shaped bay that Santorini is known for today. This eruption devastated the Minoan civilization, a genuinely advanced and wealthy Bronze Age society centered on the nearby island of Crete, known for sophisticated architecture, extensive trade networks, and elaborate palace complexes. Most famously, the vast palace at Knossos, with its hundreds of interconnecting rooms, light wells, and a writing system we still haven't fully deciphered. Archaeological excavations, particularly at a Minoan settlement called Akrotiri, directly on Thera itself, have uncovered an entire town preserved in volcanic ash, sometimes compared to Pompeii, showing multi-story buildings, detailed frescoes, and advanced plumbing systems, all buried in a single catastrophic event.
Strikingly, and unlike Pompeii, no human remains have been found at Akrotiri, which suggests the population may have had warning and evacuated before the worst of the eruption, leaving behind a town frozen in time, with beds, pottery, and storage jars still in place, its painted walls still vivid under the ash. Some archaeologists and historians have proposed that this eruption and the resulting collapse of Minoan civilization may have been the real historical seed behind the Atlantis myth, a genuinely advanced island civilization destroyed catastrophically and suddenly, with its center literally swallowed into the sea, passed down through Egyptian trade contacts and oral tradition over the following centuries until it reached Plato in a significantly altered form. As compelling as the Thera connection is, it's important to be honest about where it falls short of a clean explanation. Plato's description places Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, meaning the Atlantic Ocean, west of Gibraltar, while Thera and Crete sit firmly within the Mediterranean, on the opposite side of Greece entirely. Plato is also quite specific that Atlantis lay in front of that strait, and he describes it as an enormous landmass, larger, he writes, than Libya and Asia combined, far bigger than the small volcanic island of Thera.
Supporters of the theory argue these geographic details may have been altered or exaggerated through centuries of retelling before reaching Plato. But critics point out this is a significant, unexplained discrepancy rather than a minor detail. There's also a timing gap. The Thera eruption happened around 1600 BC, while Plato explicitly dates Atlantis' destruction to roughly 9600 BC, thousands of years earlier. Defenders of the theory suggest this number may have resulted from a translation or unit error somewhere in the story's transmission. One common proposal is a simple factor of 10 mistake, an Egyptian symbol for 900 later misread as 9000, since ancient Egyptian and Greek calendar systems didn't always align cleanly. And there's one more awkward fact. The Minoan civilization did not actually vanish overnight. Archaeology shows it persisted in a diminished form for roughly another century after the eruption, which sits uneasily with Plato's account of a civilization destroyed in a single day and night. Critics view these gaps as considerable obstacles to explain away, rather than strong supporting evidence. So where does this actually leave us?
Most historians maintain that Plato's Atlantis was very likely intended as philosophical allegory, not literal history, and no physical evidence for a literal sunken island civilization matching Plato's description has ever been found anywhere on Earth, despite centuries of searching. At the same time, a smaller group of researchers find the Thera eruption theory a genuinely compelling possible inspiration, not for the whole story point by point, but as the kind of real, catastrophic, civilization-ending event that could plausibly seed a much older oral tradition, one that Plato later reshaped into a structured philosophical narrative, complete with new details, dates, and locations that shifted over the centuries of retelling. What we're left with isn't a discovered lost city. It's something arguably more interesting, a real, devastating ancient disaster, a real advanced civilization that was genuinely destroyed by it, and a 2,000-year-old philosophical story that may be an echo of that real event, wrapped in enough allegory and retelling that we may never be able to fully separate the two. If you found this as fascinating as our previous mysteries, subscribe, because next time we're going even deeper into history's most contested and unresolved stories.